There's a quesadilla in the microwave. I wrote back, kiss emoji.
I wrote back, kiss emoji.
Ready? Are you guys ready?
Ready, set, put up. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And he's Garrett Price.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. We're back with the second show of the week, third show of the week.
Yeah.
We did an injury show.
Injuries.
You get so much nerds talk. Like if you like us, you're in there.
You're in heaven.
Don't like us? You're not listening, so I don't care. So we're back. We're going to do our buy of the week, our sell of the week, and then we're going to redraft the rookie class. Now, since the last show went so long, we're going to make this show go shorter.
No, we won't.
Well, it has to. It can't be as long as that last show. It's impossible.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Let's see. What nonsense can I talk about? Nothing like I like the Dynasty Nerd show. Just got to fast forward through the first 8 minutes. Unless you want to get to know us better.
I know. That's part of the charm.
That's the thing. Like, yeah, maybe there's 50, 60% of people that don't like that. But the 40, 50% that do, love it.
I think 40% of people don't. I like shows that, I want to know who the hosts are and stuff, and I want to feel like I know them and I'm in a room with them and
hanging out.
I feel like if I was in a room with Joe Rogan, I could have a full conversation about tons of stuff because I feel like I've listened to that dude for 10 years now. So long. I used to feel that way about Howard Stern, sports media is people I've listened to. So yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for 11 years now. I feel like people have a good idea who I am. Yeah. I'm an idiot. That's where our show differs. Our show is a Dynasty show. Basically, it's three buddies that hang out and talk Dynasty and give you information, and we are just blessed enough to be right more than we're wrong.
Preach.
Yeah, because we put a lot of time into it. I don't do anything else. That's different. Well, it's you're on your phone a lot, just like me. I'm the difference between me and you is you're on there, and I walk by you is you're on something that could buy something, whether it be clothes, mats, or something we already have, which is going to be 80%. I'm studying football all the time on football. You're on Twitter. I'm yeah, that's a news app, essentially. Where do you think I get all of my information? I go from one to another.
The tweet.
Yeah, I got to be on top of this information. How am I going to make a trade if I don't be the first to act? Why does this guy want Jalen Coker? Or go check my waiver wire for Jalen Coker because Deontay Johnson just got traded. Guess what? Jalen Coker was on the waiver wire in 3 leagues.
And you snatched him up?
I put a waiver claim in.
There you go.
Well, I'm in one of those leagues with you, and I put a labor claim in.
Labor and delivery.
Exactly.
I hope it's a beautiful, healthy.
I hope I have a baby Coker.
Is it a fab bid or just a waiver bid?
Huh?
Is it fab or waiver?
Fab.
How much you bid?
Don't you want to know?
I bid $11.
I don't want to tell you.
I really have no idea what I bid.
I
I usually
bid
don't bid.
12.
You'll find out tomorrow.
Honestly, I don't even really care if I get them or not.
In Dynasty leagues, it's very rare to have somebody I have to get this guy.
You know what? When you're talking, speaking of fab too, you know what's silly? I'm I'm not going to spend all my fab. And then at the end of the year, I still have, if it's $100 fab, I still have $98 left every single year. I don't ever use it.
It's true. When I see trades go through with and $40 of fab, I'm sure, yep, you can have it.
Yeah, you want another 50? There's very few times
I'm
where
happy if I get one waiver claim a year.
Yep.
And it's always the only time I use it all is super flex league.
Some quarterback.
Went down.
Yep.
Joe Flacco's now the starter. Full fab.
Yep.
Full fab.
Full send.
Dude, double Fs. What else begins with the letter F, Garrett?
Friendship.
Man, the F word's my favorite word. I use it so much. In my regular life, I
thought for sure you were going to say faith. I can't believe it.
Dang it. So much. Yeah.
Fantasy football.
Fantasy football. Yeah, it's good. Wow. F is good. F is good.
Yes.
And I ain't effing around.
F is life.
Yo.
All right. Let's get into our F and buy of the week.
All right. Our buy of the week. We've got 3, potentially 4 options. Rich added an additional little claim in there.
I saw a good thing on NBC.
You want to do that one first?
Sports.
You want to do that one first before we get to this?
I saw CBS Sports tweet out. Actually, I think Ray Garvin retweeted it because Ray's on his Anthony Richardson kick where he's this is the GOAT. And in this picture, it says first 10 career starts. Anthony Richardson and Josh Allen. Passing touchdowns, 7 each. Rushing touchdowns, AR, we'll call them, 5, Josh, 6. Turnovers, AR, 11, Josh, 13. Passer rating, AR, 68.8, Josh, 64.2. Completion percentage, 50.2% for AR, 52.3 for Josh. Clearly better by Josh.
How many times did Josh Allen tap out and go to the sideline? I don't see that one on here.
Oh, 0%.
Okay.
AR's at 100%. He's done that before.
100% of the plays.
Every play.
Oh, I'm exhausted.
Oh my God.
I had to take a knee on that one, guys.
Dude, you tapping a helmet, and there's so many different, like, I wish we had a video of like him tapping the helmet coming out, and then we just overlaid it and like putting words in there, and it's just completely different segments. Like, oh, there's a bee in my helmet. Like, there's so many different things you can put in there. Gotta come out. It's so unusual. And I would bench him too.
I've never heard of that.
I've never seen
Not
it
the quarterback
either.
position.
Not at the quarterback. That's what I'm saying. At the quarterback position, I've never seen.
But it got me thinking. Like everybody, and again, Ray's out there harping for Anthony Richardson, and this aid kind of showed you, like, yes, it can easily be turned around. We talked about it too. Like, even though I said I think he should sit behind Joe Flacco just for a little bit, even though a guy like him needs game reps, it was him pulling himself out was kind of like my turn on there.
Yeah.
But like he's only. I also said in the podcast, I was like, I'm not done with Anthony Richardson. He's only 22 years old, and he came in this league knowing he needed a lot of work. And seeing that next to Josh Allen shows, like, Josh Allen came into the league knowing he needed a lot of work, and he got better. Now, Josh Allen's an outlier. I'll say that because most people that come in that need to work do not get there.
You could also probably compare his stats to the first 10 games of Sam Darnold, and it would probably look, like you could put it for the first 10 games of almost any player. Usually they're not very good.
Somebody made a good point. They're like, man, like, because Aaron Rodgers looks so bad. Like, is it? That makes me think, like, was Zach Wilson really a terrible quarterback? He's like a Sam Darnold left, and look how good he's lived in Minnesota. Like, maybe it's just the Jets.
It could just be the Jets.
It could be. Because Sam Darnold's looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I like Zach Wilson coming out.
Although Sam Darnold looked pretty bad in Carolina, too, to be fair.
Yeah, he did. You're right.
But
he's finally in a QB-friendly system, and he's looking good.
So it just made me think, like, right now, this week, with Anthony Richardson getting benched.
What would you pay for him?
I would pay a late first for him in a Superflex league.
I don't think I could give a first, but if somebody...
A late first? You wouldn't give up a late first for an 22-year upside top 4 pick quarterback where the team just said we're not giving up on him, we're just giving him a little breather because he needed one. He tapped his helmet.
How often have you heard that?
A lot.
A very specific narrative.
That very specific narrative, and then it turned out well.
Yeah, just like I knew they were going to bench him as soon as I said, oh, we're weighing all options this week. That means you're benching your starter.
I would give an early second. I would not give a late first.
What the hell's the difference?
About 25%.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Right.
Yeah, dude, I would have a hard time giving up a late first, any first.
So if you're a contender, like a legit contender for a championship, you only have 2 quarterbacks on your roster. You wouldn't go a late first for Anthony. You'd rather have.
If I'm a contender, I would rather go get Matthew Stafford, or
I would rather get somebody that I could use
be my third quarterback
to contribute. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're a contender, you most likely have 2 solid quarterbacks that you're starting every single week.
But what happens if one gets hurt? I would rather have my insurance piece than I would my upside piece because I got to make sure I win now.
Oh. I really get the upside. You don't really get windows of getting a guy like Anthony Richardson.
If you're in a rebuild, it makes sense. Go for it.
But
give a high second.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I group like 2-1, 2-2, the same as like 111, 112 personally. So that's where I would personally, if I was a legit contender, and I like legit, like 11, 12 pick, not 9.
Sure.
I'd give up that. Or if I was rebuilding, I'd give up 2-1, 2-2.
I'm willing to do it in a rebuild and take a shot on this guy. The same kind of thing that I was doing all offseason with Justin Fields. Do I think he's going to get another chance? Yeah. Will he take advantage of it? Probably. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the long-term answer anywhere. But it's worth the risk because the rushing upside alone of a player like this is worth it. But yeah, I don't think I could do a first.
He's clearly the next Josh Allen.
Clearly.
Okay, who are the other options? I think it's a good buy window. My buy of the week personally would be Anthony Richardson.
I have no problem with that. Like I said, if I would do it for an early second.
Okay. I like all the other guys you have on here too.
A lot of young guys this week for our buys of the week. We have Ben Sinnott or Sinnott if you're nasty. He has a chance to follow the Trey McBride track here pretty cleanly, honestly. Sits and learns from Zach Ertz in year one. Same exact thing.
Yep.
Gets an opportunity at some point during year two. Same exact thing. And then becomes a top 6 dynasty tight end due to ability mixed with target share in an explosive offense that also happens to be led by Cliff Kingsbury.
And what would you give for Ben Sinnott in a Superflex tight end Premier League?
Also probably an early second.
I'm good with the second. Yep.
I'm good with the second as well.
Okay. So he's another one of our buy options potentially this week. We also got Jaylen Wright. Jaylen Wright, we've been talking about what happens when Tua comes back and how good that's going to be for guys like Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill. And obviously it was.
Yep.
Devon Achane
looked great.
RB2 on the week. Everything's good. But I think maybe the forgotten guy in all of this is Jaylen Wright. And so this might be a good opportunity to kind of swoop in there. He hasn't done much so far this year, but we've seen flashes of him in this offense that do look pretty appealing. Even Raheem Mostert got a rushing touchdown this week. He's been banged up a lot this year. So if something were to happen to either one of these guys, Jaylen Wright, we know that they're willing to kind of put him into this lineup and insert him in. So I think this is kind of that, looking at timing, this is really good timing to kind of sneak in there and try to get a Jaylen Wright.
Yeah, I give him a high second. I really like Jaylen Wright in this offense a ton. Remember, they traded a 3rd-round pick next year to go up and get him as well, so they don't have a 3rd next year for him. With this offense, with Tua back, it's going to be more explosive. Raheem Mostert was a running back 1 last year. Even in his first game back with Tua, Raheem Mostert, who's been banged up, came in, was running back 16 on a week in PPR leagues. I think Jaylen Wright and Devon Achane are a really good mixed combo, and I think that's how Miami's going to run. So a high second for a guy who could potentially be a running back 1, high-end running back 2 next year, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm with you there. I think, out of the 3/4 guys we have here, he would be the guy that I would want to go attack the most.
Yes.
And it's because the offensive upside there.
Mm-hmm.
We love this Miami offense, and obviously Raheem Mostert has he's kind of lived a charmed life the last couple of years, right? And now he's back to the
semi-charmed kind of life.
Semi-charmed kind of life.
I love that song. It's a great song.
Great album.
You should play it down in your basement.
I did yesterday.
All right, perfect.
I had the whole 90s, early 2000s playlist going.
Dude, not going to lie. When you talk about great albums, it sounds funny. Third Eye Blind, that first album, start to finish.
It's a great one.
Great Motorcycle Drive-By.
It's good stuff.
Very good stuff. Anyways.
I can't even remember what I was talking about, but
something about Jaylen Wright.
Yep.
Good time.
He's a good time. You should get him.
Bingo.
Step off that ledge, my friend.
Yep.
Last but not least, Rome Odunze. So far, he's been relatively a non-factor for fantasy football. He hasn't been somebody that you've been able to really trust. Hasn't been terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Just hasn't had any of those big games that you were kind of hoping for. But kind of like we talked going into the year, it's probably going to be more like a JSN type year.
Yep.
And it's going to be a little slower developing. And so now that people went from high expectations to the realization of, dang, I am going to have to wait a while. This could be another guy where the timing might be right, might be perfect to kind of sneak in there and get him. And he's still getting decent amount of targets. He was second most targeted player on the team this week. So it's not like he's being buried by all the other players. He's just not been able to quite get above everything and stand above everybody else. But the day likely is coming where he's going to become either the 1 or the 2, depending on him and DJ Moore. I don't know how that's going to quite shake out. But either way, assuming Caleb Williams becomes the quarterback that we've seen flashes of, then you're going to feel really good about that.
Yeah, I'd be real aggressive here with the Rome Odunze. If there's a window at all, I'd be willing. If I was a middle-of-the-road team, I'd give a first and a second. If I had a top 5 pick, I would have no problem giving that up for Rome Odunze whatsoever. Maybe outside of like a top 3 pick where because I don't know how it's going to shake out yet. Get an opportunity to get like a guy like Ashton Genty, Cam Ward. I haven't watched Ted McMillan enough yet, and I'm sure there'll be somebody else I fall in love with, definitely like another running back. I have no problem giving up even a high first pick on there.
And you probably won't even have to.
But to be fair, even if it was 1-3, I probably wouldn't have a chance to get
Superflex tight end premium. You're giving 1-3 or
I would be.
Is that different?
I would be I really like Rome's tape a lot. And I like him paired up with DJ Moore in that offense with Cole Kmet. And the running game's getting going there too. Caleb gets a little bit better every single week. I like Rome a lot. I think he's a super talented receiver. When I was watching the tape, I'll admit I was wrong at this point until now. We'll see how it all plays out. I had Rome Odunze, if not better, equal to Malik Nabers. So for me, I have no problem. And that was a super deep class. And listen, we're about to redraft a class. This class this year was special.
Really good class.
It's a very, very special class.
Imagine if they had some running backs. Whew.
And this is somebody who hasn't given you, he hasn't squeezed that juice right away, so he's fallen by the wayside, right? Like even in we did the mock draft right before we started the show, he fell because of that, and right now that tells me this is a good buy window. Yeah, I'd have no problem giving up that
but you probably won't even have to because you took him with a mid first this year,
and you're right.
You took him with 1.6, 1.7, probably somewhere in there.
So first and second, hopefully, so pick 5.
So I bet there's a lot of people that might just be willing to like, hey, let's re-rack. You want to give me a mid first next year for a guy who just took mid first? Cool.
And if I need a receiver, like at number 3 overall, I'm probably most likely going to have watching tape, but you know this. Like, would you say Tet McMillan's the number 1 receiver right now?
Tet's probably 1, and then it's probably either Travis Hunter or Luther Burden would be next.
And it's probably going to be safe to say when it's all said and done, when I'm done watching tape, I will probably have liked Rome Odunze better than Tet McMillan. Like, I thought he was a very good receiver. So for me, it comes on that. I have no problem giving that up.
Okay.
Right. My buy of the week is Anthony Richardson.
You're going with A-Rich. What about you?
The only thing I'd add here to Rome Odunze is, I mean, do you think it's going to get better as the season goes on? The price just might drop even further as the season goes on.
Potentially, you do also run the risk that like maybe it's a hot streak.
Yes.
So I think that's, you could definitely roll the dice and maybe you get them even a little bit cheaper, but you could also see that price go up.
I also think it's the problem that too, Matt, is when you wait a little bit longer too. Teams they start to settle a little bit more into the off season. And sometimes when you're like, at this point of the season, your team's terrible. Like all you have going for you is making trades.
Yeah.
So it feels like, man, my team is bad. And like, you're in this mindset, like I just got to get better. Like I got to get out of this hole. And sometimes just the process, that dopamine hit of making a trade gets you there.
Yep.
So once the offseason's there, I think it'd be way harder to get Odunze. Like, oh no, I'm just waiting for next year. Allen's off the team. Like you're already set into 2025 where Odunze obviously has his highest ceiling. So I think the strike time window is like we're in this good trade window now for the next couple of weeks. That's where he falls in that category. I think Sinnott falls in that category way more so. And even like a Jaylen Wright, I think you're like, oh wow, this is it. Raheem Mostert is a grandfather now. It's a Jaylen Wright time.
With Ben Sinnott, he was probably the top guy for me, and part of the reason was just seeing how much Zach Ertz is being used in this offense and thinking about what's that going to look like with a guy that's a little bit more dynamic eventually. So that did get me pretty excited thinking about like if I could give a mid to early second to get a guy like that. I do think like obviously you're playing the long game, but I think it could be a pretty good
worked out for Trey.
Pretty good game. Yep.
John Mackey Award winner Trey.
That's right.
All right. What about sells?
Sells this week, guys. So maybe it's a good opportunity to get out from underneath these guys. We've actually got 3 wide receivers, and one has actually his situation has changed since putting this sheet together. So maybe it's not as good of a time to sell, but we'll talk about him in a second here. First one here is Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley. I think the narrative is going to be, hey, DeAndre Hopkins is gone. Time for Calvin Ridley to eat, and he did.
Yeah.
He did this past week. He had an awesome game. 10 receptions for 143 yards, which even for me accelerates now is the time to get out.
Dude, this is the easiest winner of this list by a large margin. This is the Dynasty pinnacle of sell. This is what, when we talk about all the time, like Dynasty is a game of windows, right? Yep. These windows open and close as fast as boom, like that. See how fast I snap my fingers?
Ooh, so fast.
Speedy, snappy, rich.
Speedy, snappy, rich.
Yeah. SSR,
baby.
Thank God it wasn't. Thank God my name's not Seth. So
this is for short.
Oh yeah, I'm a slippery Seth.
All right, guys, I'm done. I'm done.
So for Calvin Ridley, like when this moment comes up, you have everything backs up. Like, hey, they extend this dude long term. He's there for a couple of years, so you don't have to worry about. Yeah, he's a little older, but he's got 2 years because they're paying him. Obviously, he showed like when he's the number 1 guy, he could produce at a high level. Like this is the perfect window to get out from Calvin Ridley, who's 30, 31 years old.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for me was we're not normally going to see this amount of pass attempts for these guys. They had 38 pass attempts. They average, including this game, 27.5 pass attempts per game. So that's 10 less attempts each and every week. So there's going to be other guys getting the ball. He's not going to be fed to this level each and every week. And it's not going to be in a situation where the Lions honestly didn't care at that point.
No.
Like, go ahead and catch all these mid-range passes. Like, we don't care. We're up 30
I was going
points.
to say, were they up 30 at that point? Or
Probably,
35,
whatever it was. Like, we don't care. Like, we've been in prevent since the second quarter.
This is prevent defense. Sure, you can have those.
Yes, take it. It's fine. So I think this is just one of those perfect opportunities to just unload a guy.
Was it Mason starting?
Mason Rudolph. Yep. Yeah. So it's not even the normal quarterback who knows. His rapport hasn't been great with Will Levis so far. So
that's the point. That's another reason to move on. Is this is a backup quarterback that maybe has a better relationship with Calvin Ridley than the actual starter does.
It could be true.
So I would expect that production to not be replicated again. So great time to get out from an old Calvin Ridley.
Exactly. 2 weeks ago, one of the sells was Cole Kmet, which obviously, hurt my heart. I'm a big Cole Kmet guy, but it's all about windows. And if you sold then, it's looking pretty good because Cole Kmet's had 2 down weeks since then. I think this is the same type of window with Khalil Shakir, a guy that I liked. He was a mid-range receiver that I was higher on than most, and he's hit to some extent. Now, he's not been a top-tier guy, but he's been a very good fantasy asset the past couple seasons. But after a 9-reception, 107-yard game, I think this is kind of the highest we're going to see him go more than likely. Keon Coleman is becoming more involved in this offense, is doing more. They just added Amari Cooper to this offense, who, yes, he didn't do anything this week, but they brought him in for a reason. And they do still have a talented tight end in Dalton Kincaid. So there's a very real possibility that even though this week Khalil Shakir was the number 1 option in this offense, that could fall to 3 or 4 very, very quickly. And so I think it's just a time to just, yes, you're not getting anything crazy for him. You're probably getting a late second type of thing for Khalil Shakir, but it's probably a good time to just capitalize while the iron's hot because more than likely it's going to drop.
And Khalil Shakir was a guy that was going 4th, 5th rounds.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that is one of those big time. Yes, you're giving up a guy that's kind of hit in that range, but you have to look at it from what you gave up to get that asset and what you're getting in return, and that's you're making a big come up there.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that is kind of how you win long term in Dynasty is making those kind of small moves like that.
Absolutely. Last one here. This is the one that I said, yeah, maybe this has changed since the news broke. I had Josh Downs as the last guy because he's been having some big games. He has looked good, but just tough to trust Anthony Richardson when Josh Downs had 104 of his 175 yards. It's just a tough thing to trust. But now with Joe Flacco, maybe it's not the best time to get rid of Josh Downs because I do think good days are ahead. So we'll probably narrow this one down to just the 2 guys.
Or Calvin Ridley.
Or just Calvin.
It's Calvin. Calvin Ridley's the best. Khalil Shakir, I think, is a nice if the scenario is right and you can get the right compensation. He's also a nice sell.
There we go.
All right. You want to redraft the 2024 rookie class?
Let's do it. Yeah, partway through the season seems like a good time to kind of jump back in and see how we're feeling about this class. So we each got a crack at it, starting with Matt O'Hara, and this was a Superflex tight end premium redraft. I almost said mock draft. Tight end premium redrafting of the 2024 class.
Are you going to put the Google Doc in the show sheet?
Yeah, I'll put this in the show sheet. This would be another one good to maybe check out on YouTube as well. Peter does a good job of usually putting these graphics. I think he said he'll even put all these into Sleeper so it'll look like a real draft and everything. So yeah.
Make me look good, Pete.
Make us look good, Pete. Come on, buddy. So, Matt, you have the 101.
All right, at the 101, I'm going to go Jayden Daniels, not Jaylen Daniels. Jayden Daniels, and obviously this boils down to the rushing upside we've seen and all that kind of good stuff. This being super flex tight end premium, it was going to be a quarterback, and we just seen more out of Daniels than we've seen out of Caleb, and some of the concerns that I had for Caleb, which I had kind of coming into the NFL, I've seen, what I mean? Some of the stuff where he's a little bit too off script. He's really got to get kind of the ball out of his hands in rhythm a lot more, I think, to be an NFL quarterback. And we're continuing to see that. He's getting better every week, but we're just seeing a little bit more out of Jayden Daniels, and he's producing from a fantasy perspective. He's QB3 on the year and just balling out, man.
Yeah, he's my number 2 overall Superflex player behind Josh Allen. Overall, over any other player. So to me, he was easily the 1-1 there. Great play. Like I said, if I was doing a startup, I would take him number 2. And honestly, it depends the route I want to go. I'd have no problem taking him number 1 overall because of the youth over a guy like Josh Allen. Depends how I want to attack my startup. So I'm on the clock here at number 2, and I actually started to write Caleb Williams' name
2 was a really tough spot because I felt like the tier from 2 to 5, you could have been okay with any one of those guys.
Yeah, and there's multiple guys here, but I took the unicorn. I took the one of one, and that was Brock Bowers. And I was telling myself, does Caleb Williams still offer tremendous upside? Yeah, of course. But, like, I can get another Caleb Williams. Like,
agreed.
As Malik Nabers looked really good? Yeah, but there's probably, like, 8 Malik Nabers out there that I could probably go try and get. There's only one Brock Bowers, a 21-year-old tight end that looks like how he looks, which is a big wide receiver one. And we talked about already, like how enough's not enough to give up for Brock Bowers. I think it was probably our injury show we talked about this, so you weren't even here. And I was just saying, like you probably can't overpay for Brock Bowers enough. Like, he's that much of a difference maker where you're getting like almost a wide receiver one in your tight end spot. Like, and going back, I was mentioning like the Travis Kelce days in his peak, like for 7 years straight. Like, if you look at a lot of best ball lineups, like most of them had Travis Kelce in that lineup, and that's what Brock Bowers offered. So for me, over Caleb Williams, over Malik Nabers, over Marvin Harrison, he's the only one of one and a clear one at his position group. Outside of, you can make an argument for Jayden Daniels. You can make an argument for Malik Nabers being 1-1. I know I said I moved him there at one point. I've since moved Justin Jefferson back to 1-1 over Malik because of the situation he's in. So for me, 1-2, pretty, not easily, but when I thought about it, it made it easier as Brock Bowers.
Yeah, and I had a sneaky suspicion that you were going to go Brock Bowers there with it being tight end premium. That's what I was kind of assuming was going to happen. And it left me in a really tough spot because I knew that by putting myself third, it would also put me outside of this window. So I was going to have another tough decision at 6 because I didn't get that top tier, those top tier guys. But I ended up going with Malik Nabers. I would have been fine with Caleb Williams. I would have been fine with Marvin Harrison Jr. I just went with Malik because what we've seen so far out of him is basically, regardless of the circumstances, he's hit.
Yep.
Like, he's hit. Daniel Jones has been better this year than he was last year, but I still don't think you're going to confuse him with a top tier quarterback or anything like that. So whether it's Daniel Jones long-term or they upgrade at the position, he's going to be the focal point of this offense. And there's really nobody else that's even close. I mean, you could make the argument the second closest guy as far as a focal point of the offense is now Tyrone Tracy, this, 5th round pick from last year. So I do really like what I get out of Malik Nabers. It's no slight to the other guys, but if I was doing a startup, even though I still think Marvin Harrison Jr. has a slightly higher ceiling, and I still love obviously taking these quarterbacks, I would still in a startup probably be taking Malik Nabers above Caleb Williams.
And Harrison's starting to come on as well.
He had a great week this past week.
He really did. I had a hard time, I think the Malik Nabers pick is a justified pick right there. I think it's really good. I was up next at number 4, and I had a tough time between Marvin Harrison and Caleb Williams. That one for me, I had to sit there and kind of really think that one out. And Caleb is just he isn't a unicorn. There are things that he does that I find annoying and that I think he needs to clean up. While Marvin Harrison is a very clean prospect that has a ton of upside. With this being Superflex, I just had to lean towards the quarterback here and go with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams originally was going number 1, and this was kind of, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison was almost the discussion there at 1 and 2. Now we're having that same discussion right here at 4 and 5 a few months later, once the NFL, season is not half through, but pretty much close to halfway through. But I ended up going Caleb Williams. The upside is too great. If he does clean up those things and figures it out, and it's trending in that direction, the past 3 or 4 weeks has just seemed to have gotten better and better and better. And there might even have been a different narrative, this week if Jayden Daniels doesn't chuck up a 65-yard bomb and win with a Hail Mary, because it would have been Caleb Williams bringing his team back in the fourth quarter on the road in Washington to win a big game. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go Caleb Williams because I've seen a glimpse of the upside, and there's still things to work on, which is good because that means he's got more upside if he does clean him up.
Yeah, ton of upside for Caleb. And listen, all these guys, we're redrafting these guys here at 8 weeks in. right? None of this is in stone. It's just if we had to redo it today, what we do after seeing 8 weeks. And it kind of goes to show you, because my pick is obviously Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yep.
Like, I don't even need to explain.
That was an easy one.
Why It's so easy here because it's a tier. And I'm just going to use that as a point. I made this point in the league today. Somebody had a misunderstanding of the rules of the taxi squad rules, the way they set their lineup. And I go, and one of the comments I made, I was like, it just goes to show guys, like, a couple of things here. One, don't jeopardize the integrity of your league by tanking and causing people to quit your league or the league to fold or you get kicked out because of that. Because, one, you're most likely going to lose anyways. Like that one player or two, like your team's bad for a reason. And number two is, kind of going through like our draft pick show just last week, like nothing, like the 1-1 and the 1-2, like nothing's set in stone anyways. Like just because you have the 1-1, there might not be any difference between 1-4 or 1-5. I mean, here we are a week later or 8 weeks into the season. And Matt mentioned, that's why I thought of it, is like, oh, we were arguing between 1-1 and 1-2. Is do you take Marvin? Do you take Caleb? And like I said, I would take Jayden Daniels for the most part, number 2, no matter what. And there's a case to make him number overall, but like already, you know, nobody was really like, no, that'd be fair. Some people were taking Malik over Marvin. I'll give them their due.
Yeah. But for the most part, it was Marvin or Caleb.
And here we are after 8 weeks, and you know, Caleb and Marvin goes 4 and 5. You know what I mean? So like, you don't know. I mean, Justin Jefferson, like I said, went anywhere from 7 to 12 in his draft class. You just don't know. Like the draft is a crapshoot as it is. And we're 8 weeks in and we're already mixing this up pretty drastically. Like the top tier guys are still, all these guys were up there. The only one that fell out was Odunze, who mentioned, we'll see where he goes in this draft. But it's already a completely different mix of where it was 9 weeks ago, essentially. So, yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. here at 5, pretty easy, very easy choice. Yeah. And I will say, right now, all 5 of those guys we just mentioned are very high startup prospects.
Like, I don't think any of them would get out of the first 2 rounds.
I don't think any of them got the 2 rounds at all. Jayden Daniels for sure goes in the first round.
Maybe not even the top 18, like first round and a half.
Yep. I agree with that.
I would agree with that too. I think those are all, which is great when you see 8 weeks in guys that have already broken the top 18 picks overall of a startup draft. So,
so we talked about things being easy at 105. 106 was not an easy selection because we kind of dropped out of that tier of those top 18 type players into a new tier. And for those that dislike me so much for saying a few weeks ago that I would trade Brian Thomas Jr., it was never I hate Brian Thomas Jr.
Dude.
And I think he's the best available player here. So I took Brian Thomas Jr. Look, I think he's a talented player. I don't think he's a top 8 receiver. I would still today trade him as a top 8. If somebody values him as a top 8, I would trade him as a top 8.
It goes to show you when people don't watch the video, they just read the headline like when it says Brian Thomas Jr. overvalued, trade him.
Yeah.
And people are like, this guy's an idiot, blah, blah. Like, and I saw one guy comment and go, guys, did you watch the video? He's not saying he's bad. He said just trade down just a little bit for the value on him is all he's saying. Because everybody's like, you're an idiot. Or like this week, look at he blew up again this week. This video looks worse and worse every week. It's like, did you watch the video? Like nobody said he was bad. It just said, I don't value him at top 8. I value him closer to like 12, 13. Like it's just a couple of spots. Guys, it's gonna be the same tier. But like even here though, it's not a bad pick. Like it's a fine pick.
He's had some really good flashes. I still don't know. You know, I think there's a reason he's in a different tier than some of these other guys. But I thought what I've seen was enough, and I feel confident in him enough that I think he will be a very good, at least wide receiver 2 for fantasy for a long time. And so I felt good about taking him here at the 106. There were some quarterbacks there that I considered taking. Even the guy that I take at 109, I even considered potentially taking here. But I ended up going with Brian Thomas Jr., and I feel pretty solid about it.
Ton of upside, still super young, good offense. They just lost Christian Kirk. Gabe Davis probably going to miss some time as well. His injury doesn't seem like it's as bad as we originally said in the injury show where I said 2 to 4 weeks. Now he's literally day to day. So we'll see.
Is he back to day to day? I last I saw was week to week still.
It was, but then yesterday I saw like day to day.
Okay, so, good. Well, let's hope he gets back fast. A quality player. I think, you weren't as high originally, and now you're kind of coming around to him a bit, and just a ton of upside. Those LSU guys are studs, man. So
they teach him well there.
They really do. I was up at 107, and I contemplated not picking this guy and forcing Garrett to do back-to-back picks of guys that he hated.
Still wouldn't have done it.
Because I figured
Still wouldn't have done it.
Still
wouldn't have done it.
Because I figured
I was taken aback when I saw this pick come through.
I went Bo Nix, 1-7. This is a super flex tight end premium, guys.
We're aware.
Bo Nix is currently quarterback 9 on the season.
Yeah,
in his rookie year.
That's not fair when there's bye weeks.
Okay, bye
What's he in
weeks,
points per game?
And Carolina, yeah, I know he whooped up on a bad defense this past week, but guys, I think he has to be in the conversation as far as the number 7 pick in this draft.
Why did you tell me to trade him away just a couple hours ago?
What do you say?
You told me to trade him away.
Told who to trade him away?
Me.
You just got rid of him.
I didn't tell you to trade him away. Actually, my advice was about Tua and getting out from underneath him.
That was my only Bo Nix share, by the way.
You
did a good job.
You did happen to get rid of Bo Nix. Garrett was the one telling you to trade him away. Specifically,
it was my secret mission
of Bo Nix.
No, it's fine. I got Jordan Love, so I feel good about it.
He feels the love.
Yeah, no, you got a better player. I think Bo Nix is not as good of a player as Jordan Love, but I think he's very worthy of being right here, right now, because he's in the NFL. He's producing at a better level every single week. It's the same thing with Caleb Williams. They're getting used to the NFL, and
sure,
you want to see a natural progression. And week to week, he's gotten better every single day. Sean Payton knows how to put quarterbacks in a position to win and do what they do well. And I think they're really meshing. I feel like his personality and Sean Payton's personality are kind of coming together, and this thing's just going to get better as it goes along.
So my question for you, because it's not a bad pick for everything you just said. Like, it's not a bad pick. I would taking a guy. I actually would taking a guy I took next at 1-6, but for you personally, you were really big on JJ McCarthy. You had him as your 3rd quarterback.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What changed? Is it just what you've seen on film here and the fact that he's out for the year that made a decision for you?
It is. It's the unknown.
You got to see it
versus the known. Yeah. That's all it is.
Which is good because like sometimes it's just the known. It's safer than the unknown.
Yep.
At this point. And I took Drake Maye at 1-8. Same thing. I've really liked what I've seen.
And I was going between those two guys. And
you had to stand brand though.
I wanted I was like, if I'm not going to pick him and he's going to fall even further, either it's going to be Garrett that takes him, and it's going to be
not.
or it's going to be me taking him at 10. I was like, I'm going to take him here at 7 and make my point here, I guess.
Yeah, you would have got him at. We'll see who you got at 10. It's pretty. You get a flip flop to my guess. It doesn't really matter. I took Drake Maye. 2 starts that he's gotten. He's looked pretty good. Him getting the ball out quick, his arm, his composure, how young he is. I would have taken him here at 1-6 over Brian Thomas Jr. and Bo Nix and felt very good about it because, again, what I've seen in a short window, on top of the upside we saw on tape. This is my 3rd quarterback coming out. He's still my 3rd quarterback now. You mentioned this is Superflex tight end premium, guys. What are we doing? I will still always value the quarterbacks over these positional players because it's, outside of a guy like Brock Bowers, the rest is replaceable. Even right now with a mix of young quarterbacks in the league, there's the haves and the have-nots when it comes to really good quarterbacks. And if I had the opportunity to get a young guy who has the opportunity to be a top 8 guy, just like you said, Bo Nix is 9, top 9, top 10, top 12, quarterback 1, consistently for years. You have to take those guys. It's why we talk about during rookie draft, like top 10 draft capital, you got to take these guys. Sorry. Like you got to take them higher because it's the haves and the have-nots. And if you want to win a Superflex tight end premium challenge, if you don't have a have at quarterback, you're not winning a championship. It's that simple. You need one of those guys. They score too many points consistently.
Yep.
And if you want a guy who's going to average close to 18, 20 points game, which is a very high-end wide receiver 1, which is literally like wide receiver 1 or 2 overall, no tight end gets there. Barely running backs get there. This year we've seen a couple, but you're talking elite high-end running back 1s, elite high-end wide receiver 1s is like a good quarterback 1, essentially.
Yeah.
So
17.9 right now for Jared Goff. He's the 12th best from a points per game basis. 17.9.
17.9. And that's 12th best. So can Drake Maye be Jared Goff? Potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got to swing at those kind of
and
guys.
he's got the athletic ability that you don't see from all the guys. Now, this was a decent class where, for the most part, all of these guys had some rushing component to their game.
Except for Penix.
He didn't really. But when forced to, he actually showed that, oh, man, he's actually a halfway decent athlete. He just kind of like C.J. Stroud was, where he just never did it. Mm-hmm. But so that is a kind of an underrated aspect of Drake Maye's game, that kind of 40 to 50 yard a game type stuff. He's not ever going to be the guy rushing for 100 yards a game or anything, but
that's fine. 40 yards
those
a game.
3 to 5 points, that adds up.
Yeah, if you get 40 yards a game rushing, you're top 7 quarterback, top 8.
Yeah. So I was really hoping that Drake Maye was going to fall. One more pick. I was so ready to snatch him up. So I think that was a great pick, especially because I thought you were going to take the guy that I ended up taking at 109. So I ended up going Ladd McConkey. I know, Rich, you've been really, really high on Ladd McConkey. I've liked what I've seen so far. I had a really good nerd score on him. I believe he was my wide receiver 5 or 6. I don't remember exactly which spot, but good score on him. So I've liked him through the process. But he had kind of had more or less bad luck early on in the season, where he got good amount of targets and just couldn't find his way in the end zone. Well, he broke through that this week, 2 touchdown game. He's just clearly the number one option in this passing offense, and it's really not even close. I know Quentin Johnston kind of had his day a little bit early on in the season, and we saw some tight ends do a few things.
We try to mention when that happened, those were broken plays. The guy was wide open.
Don't expect that to continue.
Yes, and it didn't.
So I think even if, let's say it's worst case scenario for McConkey, we see the Chargers take a top tier wide receiver next year or add one in free agency or whatever, I still think that he's a savvy enough route runner that you're still going to have a low-end wide receiver 2 for a long time, even if he's the number 2 option in this offense that doesn't throw the ball a ton. Yeah. He's still going to continue to get the job done. So for me, it got to a point where I like the safety of this guy at this point. The funny thing is, I probably, in retrospect, would have taken the guy at 111. I literally just forgot. That, like, oh, shoot, we haven't taken him yet. Yep. So I probably would have taken him at 111.
And then I would have got Ladd McConkey then. Because, and listen, I went through the metrics last week of why I said, hey, for the trades, I was like, go out and get Ladd McConkey. This guy has wide receiver 1 in all of them. Literally came out this week. And his touchdowns weren't like broken play touchdowns. They were contested catches, him separated. If you're an
almost had another touchdown too, where he was down at like the 1.
Yeah, when he went down.
Yeah.
If you look at, and if you're an analytics person, go research all the analytics on wide receivers, whether it be, first read target share, separation. Metrics. Ladd McConkey's in the top 10. In a lot of those metrics. He is a fantastic receiver. This is a receiver, if you go back to rookie tape, I brought his name up, like in January, February, like, dude, I like this guy's tape, already, like just the little I've seen. And and he's the player that kept growing, and I had him ranked higher than probably significantly against the whole Dynasty market. Like, I was really big on Ladd McConkey, and he showed last week. I think even they signed a guy in free agency or something like that, which I'm not really thinking they're going to spend a ton of money there.
There's not many to go. It's basically T. Higgins and then a bunch of scrubs.
He's the number 1 receiver on this team and for the future. He's young. He's fast. He's a fantastic route runner. This is a guy
he's
want.
He's good in and out of breaks, that's where he gains his separation. Yeah. He's very good.
So I think obviously you should have taken Rome with Odunze.
I would have in retrospect when I saw you take him. I was like, I literally forgot he existed.
But again, this class again, we said before, this is such a great
still
class.
Don't hate it even.
It's not a bad pick. There's not a bad pick yet. Like anybody here, like you literally can get through the first round as long as you didn't take Blake Corum or something along those lines, which I'm sure some people made that mistake. Like, you're very happy. Like, you have legit
assets,
5-star. 4-star Dynasty assets here so far.
And I'm up here at 110, and I'm going back and forth in my head. Do I take Odunze here? Mm-hmm. Do I go for the wide receiver? It's Superflex tight end premium. There's a quarterback that I really, really liked. He just hasn't gotten an opportunity yet. He's in a very QB-friendly offense. He's got great weapons. I'm going to go JJ McCarthy. He's 21 years old. You know what I mean? This is almost the perfect scenario for him. He gets to redshirt basically the entire season, see how it's done here in the NFL. And Sam Darnold is a free agent at the end of the season, I believe, right?
It was a 1-year deal.
Yeah, it's a 1-year deal. So it's going to be JJ McCarthy. I don't see a scenario in which they bring back a guy, Sam Darnold, into this offense when you just spent a first-round draft pick on
Unless
a guy?
they win the Super Bowl.
Unless they win the Super Bowl. But, I mean, so I don't see a scenario in which, in which that happens. Sorry, Minnesota fans. But J.J. McCarthy, and you made my point basically for me. If J.J. McCarthy is a halfway decent quarterback, which I think he's going to be, his value is that in the wide receiver realm, he's like a top 8 guy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's just if he's at the bottom rung of a QB1, which I think he can get to that kind of production, especially in this scheme. So then I'm like, do I want that? And then if I want to trade him, I can get a guy like Odunze later on if he hits, and then probably even more. So that's my reason behind going with J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, we've seen Odunze. He hasn't had the great start, but we do. All of us like him here. It's not like any one of us here doesn't like him. I'm surprised he fell to 11 here in the first round with the next pick. But hey, man, he hasn't gotten off to that hot start. So there's just too many people that have, or there's other guys that are quarterbacks with upside.
Yeah. I think this was the best value of the entire draft.
For sure.
J.J. McCarthy here. I love it. And
with McCarthy. I thought you were talking about
not my pick. I would have taken J.J. McCarthy over Odunze. I would have taken, as much as I love Ladd McConkey, I would have taken J.J. McCarthy over Ladd McConkey. And I just said, I'm a ginormous Ladd guy. And I have been since day one, since even the combine, or going back to watch his all 22. And the reason, too, is you mentioned not only is J.J. McCarthy super young, and it's probably best that he did sit this year. Granted, it's for injury. It kind of sucks he's so young. But it's also Kevin O'Connell system is such a QB-friendly system. Mm-hmm. He's such a good quarterbacks coach in what he does. He's made Kirk Cousins fantastic. Kirk Cousins is already a good quarterback. Fantastic. He made Mullins look good. And he's resurrected already. He's made Sam Darnold look really good. Mm-hmm. So
he did good things when he was in LA too with Goff and Stafford.
Yeah. So that gets me extremely optimistic ahead of J.J. McCarthy. And I personally, even though he's QB9, I would still take J.J. McCarthy ahead of Bo Nix because of those reasons, because of the youth and the fact that he's in Minnesota, tied to T.J. Hawkinson, tied to Kevin O'Connell, tied to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So, like, there's so much pointing in the right direction for J.J. McCarthy. I love the pick, and he really probably should have gone early. I would still take Drake Maye ahead of him because I had Drake Maye rated higher.
Sure.
But I would have taken him I would have taken Drake Maye ahead of Brian Thomas and Bo Nix that went ahead of him, and I would have taken J.J. McCarthy ahead of those guys as well. I'm on the clock here at 111. I took Odunze. Again, kind of like going back to Marvin Harrison. I don't really have to explain myself. Dominant receiver at Washington. Absolutely loved his tape. Thought he's a legit wide receiver 1. Was a top 10 NFL draft pick to back it up with it. Tied to a really good quarterback who he's have a really good rapport with going down in the future.
And he was going 4 or 5-ish range before, right?
Somewhere in there,
4, 5, 6 at the latest.
And this was a smash pick and the end of a tier in my eyes too, which is an elite tier. Could these other guys join it? Oh, 100%. Even these next couple picks we have here, I can join this tier. But when we go back to top 18 startup picks, top 24, top 3 rounds, all these guys in my eyes qualify for that. And Odunze does as well without producing year one, because I don't need necessarily players to produce year one. If they're not producing because they're not putting it, like they're messed up on tape, they don't look good, that's different. Odunze is in the exact same situation that I expected him to be in.
Yep, absolutely.
Last pick of the first round, and then we'll recap the first round picks. I took Jonathon Brooks. So I had back and forth once again with the guy that Matt took. I actually started typing one and then typed the other, and then I kept going back. I had a really hard time deciding. But here was the thing, and we saw it actually when I was looking up in yesterday's show, looking at the difference of top tier running backs versus kind of everybody else. And I ended up taking Jonathon Brooks because the difference of top tier running backs and the very few that you can have.
Point differentials.
The point differentials, it was 4.2 points between RB5 to RB15. So just such a big gap. And RB15 is still a good running back. It's still somebody you're putting in your lineup every single week. Yep. So it's still very good players. So if there's somebody that I think has a chance to be kind of one of those top 6 type running backs, I got to jump on the opportunity. This was the ultimate like mystery box though, because another one we've seen nothing. But even in what is a terrible offense right now, Chuba Hubbard's still putting up numbers. So if Chuba Hubbard can put up numbers, I think Jonathon Brooks can do it. He can do it in the receiving game. He can do it in the rushing game. And if there's any position, like I get it, there's only so much time at the running back spot, but I don't want him rushing back from this. Take your time, get healthy, be 100% once you get out there.
Yep.
So I'm okay with him taking a little bit longer to play, and I'm going to roll the dice with Jonathon Brooks at 112.
You guys might not know this, and so don't feel bad. When did they open his window? I think they opened it last week.
Last week.
So they have a couple more weeks left.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking at week 10 or so of when we'll actually see him on the field.
It's close to the point where like they didn't like it came to game time to see if he's gonna be active or not.
Okay, so he's getting closer.
If I'm remembering,
getting
right.
closer
Maybe
and closer.
Somebody else, but I thought it was him. I think we're gonna see him sooner. Yeah, he won't be Nyheim Hines. He won't miss the window. He'll be activated.
Okay, I was just curious. It felt like it's been a while, but it might have just been in my brain. You know what I mean? Like, can't wait to see this guy. Can't wait to see him.
I think part of it was because they didn't open up his window right after the first 4 weeks. They waited a couple weeks to open his window. Yeah. And so that's probably why it feels like it's been taking a while.
Probably.
Recapping the first round. 101, Matt took Jayden Daniels. Then Rich took Brock Bowers. I took Malik Nabers. Matt took Caleb Williams. Rich took Marvin Harrison Jr. I took Brian Thomas Jr. at 1-6. Bo Nix then went to Matt. Rich took Drake Maye. I took Lad McConkey / Rome Odunze. Matt took JJ McCarthy. Rich took Rome Odunze as /Lad McConkey. And then I took Jonathon Brooks. So Matt, you are up with the first pick in the second round.
I know this is just like one pick after, but it feels like a whole new thing, right? You kind of clear you're like, all right, the first round's over.
Mechanism.
Clear everything out. Let's let the dust settle. See what's here. Oh my gosh, it's still a quarterback. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna grab Michael Penix. This was like we haven't seen anything out of him, but again, similar to JJ McCarthy. Love the offense, love the pieces around him.
Yep.
And he was a player that top 10 pick, right? Where did he go? 9? 8. Okay. He went 8 overall, and he's going to get his shot. It might not be next year even. It's definitely not going to be this year unless there's an injury that pops up.
Right.
But he's eventually going to get his shot, and we've seen other guys, Jordan Love comes to mind, that sat, digested, learned, and come in and as soon as they were able to start, they kind of hit the ground running. As soon as they got their feet wet in the NFL and kind of got 5 or 6 games under their belt, they looked good. They started coming into their own. I would expect similar kind of trajectory for Michael Penix once he does get his opportunity. And that's good for him. It's good for the offense in general that we won't have to see this big dip from guys like Pitts and Drake London and even what's his name, the running back Bijan. So Michael Penix, I think, was a pretty easy pick here at 2.1.
I agree, very easy. That's who I'd have taken. 2. I'm on a clock here. A lot of different ways to go. I'm gonna take somebody who has first round pedigree, who's shown some stuff when he gets the ball in his hands at least, and it's Xavier Worthy. Ton of upside there in this offense, tied to Pat Mahomes. And, this is a Super Bowl championship team, so I don't expect the rookie to come in, just hit the ground running and be the focal point of this offense, or they need to work him in and make him a part of it. They're trying to win a Super Bowl. So
secondary is getting guys ready to like work into this offense. This is the offense. Once you're up and running with everything, then you'll get your opportunities. And in the meantime, we'll sprinkle easy things on you. We'll give you some sweeps. We'll give you some little easy stuff. Easy things that you can produce and do well.
And I was torn here. There's a lot of different ways that I thought about going here. I thought about another first round receiver here too. And again, the difference for me was just tied to Pat Mahomes.
Agreed.
This is a big tier here, I think, all the way going through up until probably pick 2, 8, 2. Honestly, all the way through. I mean, I can go any different way and be happy with a lot of these guys. It's a jumbo tier here that we're into, and it's kind of like pick your poison. And for me, I just want the guy tied to the Chiefs as a first-round pick, Xavier Worthy, who's shown And I like that they're utilizing him with a lot of like end arounds as well. I could see him that being a big part of his future, and that's where you can get a lot of juice out of him. That could kind of help push him up to a high wide receiver too. Is those kind of plays that get me excited he develops into an NFL route runner and receiver.
I feel like that's the Tyreek Hill path, right? They started him on gadgety stuff, and once you learn the complete offense, you kind of you get acclimated fully into the offense, and then you become a focal point.
Absolutely.
Great point there with the whole how they did Tyreek Hill too. I mean, it's exactly what they did with him.
Yep.
So, all
right. I was trying to figure out when was too early to take this guy because honestly, I even considered him at 112.
As soon as Jonathon Brooks went, the clock was ticking.
Yeah,
because that was the next guy. I was like, there's no way. I was like, I couldn't take him where I was at 2-1 because there was still a quarterback sitting there. So go ahead.
I ended up going Tyrone Tracy here at pick 2-3, and only 8 games in, taking a guy that was a 5th round pick seems wild. Yeah. Seems wild to take him over players that were first round players, day 2 players. But just looking back even to last year's class, which was a really good running back class, and specifically guys like Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, we had both of those guys in that class. Last year, each of them, even though they were the focal point of their offense from week 1, focal point-ish, they were the starters.
Tyler Algier.
and David Montgomery was involved, but still, both of them were getting lots of work, lots of looks right away from week 1. Both of them each only had 2 100-yard rushing games all season. Both of them. Tyrone Tracy already has 2 100-yard rushing games, and we're in week 8. So he's shown right away, like, I belong in this league. I belong as a featured back in this league.
And it's only been the last few weeks where he's gotten the opportunity to be like the starter.
Yeah. Yes, he's had like 3 or 4 weeks where he's actually even gotten enough touches to even think about getting 100 yards. So he earned it the hard way. He was not given that job week 1. And he even, if you guys remember, he was the backup in preseason. Then he got hurt. And so he missed a few preseason weeks, which sets you back even more. Had to overcome Eric Gray.
Yep.
And then now he's overcome Devin Singletary as well. And Singletary was clearly the backup all night last night, despite being healthy, despite being available. It was a Tyrone Tracy show. And so if you can show me right away, like I honestly really did consider, like, if I had to draft today, would I take Tyrone Tracy or would I take Jonathon Brooks? And it's close. It's really close for me.
I would take Brooks as well. But you're right. It is close because they're both in really bad offenses. They're both don't have the greatest offensive line. And Tyrone Tracy's shown us that he can, and he looks really good. His vision looks good. His explosiveness,
which was my biggest question mark.
He's bust
fighting
off a couple
for
big
yards.
a couple big runs. And obviously, as being a former wide receiver, he can clearly catch the football, even though he had a drop ball that was right in his hands the other day.
Look, when you change the lettering on their sheet, you forgot.
So, man, I know you said Michael Penix on the board. The one question I have for you before your pick, and you're on the clock next, and this is a guy who you've traded back in a lot of drafts with you. You traded back to go get, and this has been your guy. You've been higher on Xavier Legette than anybody that I know.
Yep.
Would you take Tyrone Tracy today ahead of Xavier Legette? Because that says a lot to me about Tracy for you, because I just know how much you believe in Legette.
I mean, that's hard because that's a fundamental question of, hey, would you rather have a 5th round running back who probably has a 2 to 3 year window, or would you rather have a Xavier Legette who has the potential to be a wide receiver 1 for his team for many years? So I would probably still go Legette.
Okay.
Unless I needed a running back, and then I would for sure go Tracy. You know what I mean? Like
they're close enough for you.
They are close enough, okay. and like I said, at 2-1, I was thinking about it, and Legette was sitting there on the board, so he was at least in consideration at the very beginning of this. As soon as the first running back came off at the first or 12th pick in the first round.
Did you consider him when you took Worthy or no?
Did I consider
Tyrone Tracy?
I did.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. I stupidly thought he would come back to me.
Not with me, baby.
I didn't know.
You know me. I always scoop up the running back.
I figured he would not. And I figured making that pick would mean that I wouldn't be getting him on my team. But he was at least in the thought process, which I think says enough about him.
Again, I like so many of these guys so close.
It's tough.
If I missed out,
it's a very good class.
Even who I took here, I took Ricky Pearsall. I'm just as comfortable taking Ricky Pearsall as I am getting Tyrone Tracy.
So I went 2-4, went Xavier Legette, like we were saying, and you went 2-5.
Pearsall, yeah,
you went Pearsall.
Already back from his gunshot wound, looks pretty good in this offense.
Yeah,
and
got quite a few targets.
Yeah, and he's getting open. Which he's a very savvy route runner. First round pick. We mentioned Debo probably won't be on the team next year. I'll take a receiver in Kyle Shanahan's offense all day long.
Yep.
Ayuk had an ACL, MCL. We don't know how that knee is, so it's not like he's just going to come back next week and hit the ground running. So Pearsall has a really chance to establish himself in this offense.
I would imagine Ayuk is a question mark for the beginning of the season.
Yeah, me too. So very comfortable here. Again, a first-round pedigree receiver in Kyle Shanahan's offense. I considered 2 other running backs here as well, but it worked out where I took the receiver. Because, again, it's just a tier. I'm just going to take the guy in Shanahan's offense. I want those kind of players.
Absolutely.
Yep. And I took one of the running backs that I'm assuming you were considering with this pick. I took Trey Benson here at 2-6. And this one is another one that it's more on his tape more than anything else from watching him in college, because he's gotten some opportunities, but not a lot. Like this week, he had 1 carry. He got 10 yards.
He hasn't had a chance to show his explosiveness yet, which is crazy. He's such an explosive big running back, and we haven't seen one play yet where that kind of like shows itself on tape. And I know it's there.
Right. Well, and I think he's also a physical enough back too that I think he's going to be the kind of guy that wears down defenses, and then that explosive play, 25 yards, 40 yards. Like I think that's going to come, but I think it can be tough for some running backs. And we've seen other guys have issues with this. Some running backs are able to come in and just on a few plays show what they've got. And you're like, wow. There's other guys that are more kind of like NBA volume shooters, that they're good players. They can score, but they need more shots to get in the rhythm of a game, where I think that he kind of falls more in line with that, where he's more of a volume play where he gets more comfortable as the game goes on. Things slow down, especially for running backs. Sometimes they need things to slow down for them a little bit, and the more plays you get, the more you can kind of get a feel for the game. So I think better days are ahead for Trey Benson, and we've had him as one of our buys before, and I'm still going to be willing to buy him most of the offseason, because if anybody's down and out real quickly, and even if he doesn't get much of an opportunity, because James Conner, this is the 1 year he does actually stay healthy all season. Like those things do happen sometimes.
Looks good.
It could still be another one of those scenarios where like, oh, he's Tank Bigsby. Oh, he's Kyron Williams. Oh, he's a guy that had it. Things didn't work out year one, but sometimes it doesn't mean these guys are always dead in the water.
And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, saying what's also a good thing about Trey Benson is we know this offense works for a run game.
Yep.
Like it works. It can produce at a very high level.
Yep.
To a very decent level, like high end running back too. If Benson gets that opportunity, which I would expect him to do, you just never know with the running backs. Then with the class coming in, he should be able to produce.
Absolutely.
And at 2-7, my next pick, I was up, and I went with the running back as well. This was my first running back pick out of any of them.
I think this is the first running back pick that wasn't mine.
First non-quarterback for Matt.
Yep, first non-quarterback. I just scooped. No, I made a wide receiver pick. I went Legette before this. Bucky Irving, and obviously we've kind of beaten this horse to death. I'm not going to talk too much about it right now. Rashad White and him are back to back in the running back rankings 25 and 26. They're kind of cannibalizing each other. Yep. But you dig into the numbers, and Rashad White's doing his thing at 3.8 like he always does, and Bucky Irving's up there at 5.2. It's only going to be a matter of time before this thing kind of flips completely, and all that work goes Bucky Irving's way. Rashad White's in his 3rd season, so he's got only one more season left on his contract to begin with next season. So I would expect that if he doesn't overtake him by the end of the season, it would be next season that he kind of fully takes this thing over as they sunset Rashad White out of this offense.
And the thing that's honestly saving Rashad White right now is the injuries to Evans and Godwin, because they've needed him more as a wide receiver. That's the thing that's been saving him the past couple of weeks, because before that, he was really being phased out. So that's kind of helped that they needed to throw the ball a little bit more to the running backs.
Yeah, 100%. I think Bucky Irving has cemented himself as the legit guy here at running back, and definitely the running back of the future, and he's looked really good. You have a very solid dynasty asset running back on your offense if you have Bucky Irving. At 2A, I took Keon Coleman, first pick of the second round for the Bills. And, he's flashed here and there.
Yep,
and to me, he just really works in this offense with Josh Allen. Like, this is a really good pairing. When I talked to my buddy who's a Bill scout, earlier in the year, he said, this is going to be a learning year for Keon Coleman. Like, we run a really technical, difficult offense, and I feel like, us bringing him in, he's just going to need time to learn it. And once he does, he'll be fine, but we're going to kind of use this as kind of like a learning year. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. Same thing I said about, Xavier Worthy. Like, they're trying to win a Super Bowl. That's why they trade for Amari Cooper, and, they bring guys like Curtis Samuel, who hasn't done anything, but Khalil Shakir has looked good. Keon Coleman looks like he's a fit in this offense, and him and Dalton Cate are the future, and it looks really good. So, I again, 2-8 here, getting a guy like Keon Coleman, I feel really good about. Do I think he's a wide receiver 1? No. Could he put up some wide receiver 1's year being tied to a guy like Josh Allen and that fit in with his big arm and Keon Coleman's be able to go run a streak and go route and go up and get the football? Yes, there's a possibility there. But if not, he's a wide receiver 2, mid-range, low-end, high-end. It's there. I have a dynasty asset. And getting him here 2-8, again, shows how deep this class is.
Absolutely. 2-9, I ended up taking my 4th running back in a row. It just kind of seemed like where Matt kept scooping up quarterbacks because that's where the value was. Yep. This is where the value kind of keeps seeming to fall in the draft to me. And I went with Jaylen Wright. I was going to take Keon Coleman, so I think that was a good pick. But Jaylen Wright, love his upside. Love taking these backup running backs. I love having these guys because I mean, a few of these guys already started as backup running backs and are already ascending into the starting role. So, and when you can play these guys. So I tend to have a lot of backup running backs on my roster, and this draft kind of reflects that.
And I think we don't have to go into detail because we literally at the beginning of the show talked about the next 3 players we're talking about. So you took Jaylen Wright, Matt. You took?
I took Ben Sinnott. Sinnott.
Sounds nasty.
Depends if you're nasty. But going back to those last picks, Bucky Irving, Keon Coleman, and Jaylen Wright. With my pick, when I picked Bucky Irving, those were the 3 guys I was looking at for that pick. So I think you guys both did a really good job there. I was having a hard time figuring out which was going to be the cream that rose to the top. I ended up going with the running back, Bucky Irving. But both those picks are really good. Ben Sinnott here, obviously, tight end premium. I think he's got a great future. Go ahead, guys.
And I took Ray Davis. We talked about him with James Cook.
Yep.
Given the opportunity, he looks really good. Monday night, over 150 yards. Fantastic. Backup, understand that. But, backup running backs are a good value here late in second round to hold on to there. Knowing that if he gets a position start, James Cook gets an injury, I have a high-end player that could easily either one keep or when I get a guy like here at 211, I might have the opportunity to flip for either high first or late first, high second in the future, or just ride and start. So,
yep. And last but not least, I ended up with going with Adonai Mitchell, another one where I am going back to the tape a little bit because he hasn't produced much, but I've seen, I mentioned it before, clip after clip of him getting open and then just being overthrown or underthrown or, and
thrown out of bounds.
Yes.
All that
so
kind of good stuff.
He's creating separation. He's doing what you would expect a guy like him to do. Just the results haven't quite been there yet. But with Joe Flacco, that might change. So, so I am interested in at least still kind of sticking with the talent, even though there were some other guys where opportunity has moved them up a little bit. Yep. I'm going to stick with the talent for now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good reasoning, and I like Adonai Mitchell. Probably one of the highest upside guys in the draft.
Absolutely. All right.
See you next week, Nerd Herd.
Adios.
Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds has an incredible new offer from Underdog Fantasy for new customers. When you sign up as a new customer, you'll get a chance at their new customer free pick. But that's not all. Underdog is also offering incredible deposit bonuses. Use the promo code NERDS when you first sign up, and Underdog will give you up to $1,000 in bonus cash with your first deposit. That's right, $1,000 to kickstart your fantasy football journey. Don't miss out on this fantastic opportunity. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Sign up today with promo code NERDS and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. And in Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789.